So I always challenge my CPA friends who say, I'm only going to hire CPAs. And I'm like, why? Because everybody in your practice
Well, you
is
said
not.
you CPA friends, and I'm actually the antithesis of that. I'm not even a CPA, and I'm saying that. So it's the worst. Like, what if I say I'm only going to hire black CPAs? That's not good either.
Well, that could be different. So if the goal there is to have a black CPA firm, then I would actually encourage that, because there's only 5% out of all of the CPAs in the world, only 5% of the CPAs are black, and that's a problem.
Hello and welcome.
You put on the Barry White voice. Hello, welcome.
Yeah, that was some ASMR. I like that.
Hello and welcome. We are all the sons of CPAs. Join us as we question the current state of the accounting and tax industry with the next generation of professionals leading this space. We are the change agents in an industry fraught with money and inertia. Let's begin the Sons of CPAs with your hosts, Jason Ackerman and Scott Scarrell.
Should also be daughters, because we have a...
Yeah, I was going to say, we could have called this the Children of CPAs, but that
kind of
sounds like a horror movie. Yeah, it does.
Sexist.
I know.
Thanks so much for having me.
For the sons and daughters of CPAs.
The sons and daughters of CPAs.
I realize that now. We're going to change it. So let's begin the show.
Well, welcome.
Jason doesn't ever know how to pronounce people's names, and I think he's going to get this one.
It's like Mayo, but Nayo.
It's not. It looks like Mayo, but it's Nayo.
Nayo. Screwed it up.
It's all good. Most people do. We look at things phonetically, and so we look at the word and say, hey, if this was an M, we would say Mayo.
Well, I'm going to count it.
Yeah.
Nayo. No. This is important for our guests, or not our guests. This is important for our listeners, because I think a lot of listeners are going to see your name and they're going to want to know that it's Nayo. But Carter Gray is Carter Gray, like N. Carter.
That's what you know how you can name your iPhone? That's what mine is called, N.
Yours is N. and mine's S squared. And I thought that was so cool. We just saw each other in Vegas and we had a good time. So CPA yet, or still EA? So EA is winning in this consortium here, because we've got 2 EAs and 1 CPA in the room.
Yes. Oh, you don't know my CPA story. I guess you haven't followed me on Twitter.
I have not. Let's hear the CPA story.
Okay, so I had started taking the exams, I believe it was December 2018. Passed reg first, of course, EA. We can always do the tax one and knock it out. Went on to pass FAR and audit. COVID hit. So my credit was expiring in 2020 in May. And I had all the intentions of taking that test as soon as April 15th hit. COVID hit, they extended it. It got extended to December 31st, then extended to June 30th. And I waited until June the 7th to take BEC. Failed it with a 66.
Oh.
Took it again on June the 28th, 74.
Oh, God.
And then lost 2 credits. So let's just say EA is now getting my undivided attention from now on.
Respect to the EA, and it will respect you back. Now you have less credits to get every year to keep it renewed, right?
But it's crazy because I get that many credits anyway. I'm really big on continuing education. So
you give the credits, though. Hey, I could get credits watching you talk. I don't need to give them.
That is true. I do teach for some of, our software partners and help hand out those credits. But still, as an EA, I have to get my own.
You have to get your own. You can't get credits for the classes you teach, or do you?
Double the amount.
Well, you know what? It's so funny because I think Jacob Schroeder told me that you could get credits for the classes that you teach. I just never participate in the polls or see if that's possible, because I feel like it's cheating.
I don't think you have to.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Jacob. We have to get him on the pod too.
At least in South Carolina, you get double the amount of credits if you teach a class.
Oh.
Maryland and South Carolina, they're the CPA. Maryland CPA is very progressive. So, and I don't know about EA. EA is, I guess, a national.
EA is national, so all they care about is it CE certified.
Yes.
Right. Because that's the other thing. A lot of people don't realize there's a difference between CPE and CE.
Well, can you explain that to me? Because I don't think I know.
CE is tax. CPE is continuing professional education, so it can encompass everything, including tax.
Is that why attorneys get their CPE too, or do they not?
So CPAs get CPE, EAs get CE.
Okay.
So you have to look, as an EA, I have to look and see if a class is CE certified versus CPE certified.
So that third letter really does make a difference then.
It does.
Why are you not going to continue the CPA? Is it just you don't think it's important?
So for what I do and the clientele I serve, it's not going to make a dent in what I do. It's not going to move the needle one way or the other. Actually, when I actually sat back and looked at how much it would cost me, it probably would cost me more to maintain a CPA license versus just continuing my practice as is, because you got to get different insurance. You got to, like you mentioned, the CPE requirements that goes up, and then you got to be a member of AICPA, which I don't have to be, or some professional organization if you decide to do audit, which I never wanted to do anyway.
So I used to say this to my clients too, and everybody. It was almost like they would call me a CPA all the time, and I'd have to remind them, and I'm not a CPA. But then at a certain point, I just gave up because it's exhausting in the same conversation to remind somebody 2 or 3 times. So I think it's just in their perception. If you can help them and you can represent them, does it matter? For us, for our clients?
I think that's the big question in the industry is, does it matter? And it sounds like we're going towards no.
Well, I would lean towards it depends, right? Because a lot of people, when I have this conversation, they're like, the CPA is totally worth it. And I really believe it is, especially in corporate and in nonprofit. So if you're dealing with your clientele is going to be exchanging stock on the stock exchange, absolutely. You want to have somebody that's a CPA. If you need somebody to do an audit, you're going to need a CPA.
I want to hire a CPA though. Like for my employees, I'm distinguishing it, and I see somebody. So Ackerman, to your point, every hire that I have is going to be a CPA, and were for the past few years anyway. And that does present. And I don't know. Actually, I'm sorry. I would hire you. So.
But see, then I challenge your question. So a lot of people don't realize people in tax is generally a second career for them. So you have a lot of people who come with these varied backgrounds that we discount their experience, whether it's in psychology or in English, because they don't have that traditional accounting degree and then followed the path of the CPA. They come with some really creative concepts. And because we're looking specifically for that CPA license, we tend to ignore them. And I think it's doing our profession a huge disservice. So if you look at some of our innovators in this field, are not necessarily their first background was in accounting. They may have had a degree in something else and then decided to pursue accounting. So I always challenge my CPA friends who say, I'm only going to hire CPAs. And I'm like, why? Because everybody in your practice.
Well, you said your CPA friends, and I'm actually the antithesis of that. I'm not even a CPA, and I'm saying that. So it's the worst. I don't even mean it like that. I usually just say that to gain the respect back from a CPA that I'm talking to, and like Ackerman. So once I gain his respect back, because I'm not a CPA, and
I don't judge anyone for not being a CPA. I think it's an interesting thing because I think the AI, we're so focused on getting the CPA, but there's so many practitioners that it's so costly, and we've made the barrier to entry so high that a lot of people aren't doing it.
And I look at not only that, but I also look at who are we serving? If we look at the general population and we really be honest with ourselves, do more of the clients need a CPA, or would they benefit more from a professional tax pro?
Well, in any practice, and I think we should scope out and talk about you and then dive right back into this too. But I do think that in any practice you have, there is a place for a lot of different professionals in a practice if you're going to provide a full service to your client. And I think that there is a place for the CPA, and it may not have to be a CPA, it can be anybody, but you need to fill a role, right?
I agree. 120%. Absolutely.
So let's scope out and with the good questions. So why did you get into accounting?
Accounting. So when I was in high school, in my mind, I was going to be a corporate lawyer. And so I picked a high school that had a law program. And then that year I had my first summer job and discovered I could get my tax money back by filling out the tax forms. And so I charged all my friends $25 to do their tax returns that year. That was 28 years ago.
Wait, hold on. You charged them $25 to just fill out the W-4?
To fill out the 1040 easy, because I would go to the library and get the forms for free. Charged all my friends $25 to help them get their tax money back, because
she's a hustler, baby.
Exactly. We're in high school,
Mm-hmm.
People had jobs.
I was selling CDs in high school. And I was actually doing people's book reports for them in the library. Like, it sounds like what you were doing. I was in another way. I was like, okay, I read these 5 books. Which one do you want me to do the book report on? I go to the library and fill out the forms. And,
oh my God, that's cheating.
Well, I didn't do it for me. I did my own. So
that's funny. So anywho, after I discovered I could charge the $25 to get do the tax returns, I accidentally got placed in an accounting class in high school.
Accidentally.
So I had 2 years of accounting in high school and just fell in love with it. Math had always been my favorite subject anyway. So I went right into college, and I went to Coppin State, and they don't have a traditional accounting degree. Their degree is called management science, and I took a concentration in accounting. And just absolutely continued to fall in love with it. And around that time, they changed the requirements for the CPA exam. You needed 150 credits or something. So I went on ahead and got my MBA, but this time I chose a specialty in IT. So you'll hear me talk a lot about my passion for cybersecurity as well. And that's because, I kind of merged my love of tech and my love of numbers.
Do you incorporate some of that in your practice now or with your clients?
Heck yeah, I'm always talking to them about cybersecurity all the time. Like, it's like, I gift most of my bookkeeping clients a LastPass subscription because I'm really encouraging them to understand having a complex password and the benefits of doing so.
Wow. Yeah.
Not using Cash App because it doesn't have 2-factor authentication and can get hacked. So I try to incorporate that education piece there. I don't, stress it so hard as though I'm like, what kind of computer are you running? Does it have, what kind of firewall do you have? Like, I'm not going that deep.
Sure.
But I do stress to them that documents get uploaded to the client portal because email can be hacked and is not encrypted. So they do get these wonderful little terms from me sometimes that may go over their head, but because I say them enough, they start paying attention.
So then back to it. So you got this merging your love of numbers and tech. I think that numbers and tech is a good place to be right now these days.
Those are my jams, both of them.
So what'd you do after college?
Went straight into accounting. So I had an internship during college at a Black accounting firm here in Baltimore, Maryland, and then went to work for one of the larger construction companies here as a cost accountant. Realized I hated cost accounting. So a year later, went to work for a nonprofit, an accounting role, but it was more HR. So I stayed there about a year, did some training it was an AmeriCorps program, so they had core members. So I did some financial training for them, and then went on to dive into healthcare accounting, where I stayed about 10 years for one of the larger hospitals here, and then moved on to one of the largest imaging centers in the US. Recession hit, got laid off, and
2009, around then.
Yeah. And realized I hate waking up early. So I'm not the 8 o'clock girl. That's just not my jam. And my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, asked me, well, what the heck are you going to do? You should do this by yourself. You don't need to go out and work for somebody else. And so he really encouraged me to take my little part-time tax practice that I had, because I was already doing like a handful of taxes every year, and really stretch it so that I can make it a full-time business. And that's what I did. So first year in business, all taxes, and then realized, hey, after April, you have absolutely nothing to do. And then started diving into bookkeeping. But then the other piece of that was, I don't want to be in this office all day, because if that's the case, I may as well go get another job. So I started looking at options to be able to work remotely. And boy, oh boy, back then, it's been 10, 11 years now, it wasn't too many. There was one accounting show I went to in New York, and the biggest piece of tech that they talked about there was Shoeboxed and Square.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I was paperless from the jump because I was like, I don't want to have to maintain a file cabinet of anything. So I instantly, the first piece of equipment I bought was a scanner outside
So
of the
paperless since 2009, then, right? Yeah. And
yes.
this is your foray into entrepreneurship. Your first time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've always had some type of my little side hustle. So I've never not had a job and a business. So even now,
Like
working,
high school, your side hustle.
yes,
Yeah.
always. It's one of the things that it's a side effect of growing up not too rich.
Well, and hungry too, right? I think that's anybody. Even the people that do grow up rich, they can be hungry to do something on their own. So anybody, and I'm not necessarily speaking from experience. I didn't have a lot of money growing up either, but I think that I was always hungry for more or whatever it was. And what about slumber parties? Tell me about that. That intrigues me. Yeah, I don't know anything about it. It intrigues me.
So I mentioned I've always had a business. So while I was in college, I had invested in multi-level marketing. And so I am a big fan of multi-level marketing. I know a lot of accountants hate it, and it's because of the bad information that gets pushed out around multi-level marketing, but it is a great way to earn extra income. And I call them mini franchises. So I encourage people all the time, start a network marketing business. It teaches you and stretches you in ways you would never imagine. So I started really in college network marketing with MaryKay. If you don't know, skincare and makeup.
If you
At the
don't know, now
time,
you know. Yeah.
I wasn't into all of those things. So I felt like it would be a great way for me to learn about them and get paid while learning. So I went on to, do that for a couple of years and realized, I don't really want to do this. So I found my cousin was in this multi-level marketing business called Slumber Parties, where they sold adult toys and lingerie for ladies. So it was women only parties that really helped explore and encourage different behaviors in the men. Did that
Women's slumber parties testing sex toys.
Well, yes, that and a few other products. So there were some. We would go from tame to mild. From mild to wild. That's how we.
The later you stay, the wilder it gets.
And that's true because I would start off with all of the bubble baths and the candles and the massage aids, and then go on to we're closing the night out with the adult toys and the sexy lingerie. But these were women only parties, so the ladies got to feel really confident about having conversations about these things without the presence of testosterone in the room. And then they got to order privately, so nobody knew what the heck that they were leaving with because our shopping bags were like pitch black, so they could walk out the door and get in their cars and go have fun
So
with the items that they
you
purchased.
come for the fruit punch, and then you leave with your dildo. So to speak. So to speak. Oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna leave that part in. I probably will though.
I hope you don't leave that part.
No, that was a terrible joke.
Because that would prove why we didn't have testosterone in the room.
Yeah, but at the same time, I do respect all of it, and honestly, that's probably why I don't get invited in these rooms, because all it is and I sorry, but to this point though, this is serving a need. You're filling a need, and you're doing something that makes you happy too, and now I think you're doing that in many different contexts, and any experience you can have with salesmanship, with people, with products, with solutions, any of that helps for anybody that wants to go into business themselves, for themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of that too is, it is a business. So the other side of that is taking stock of what sells the best. How can I increase my average sale? Can I create packages? Like learning those techniques along the way helped me really
Well, you didn't go out with the big guns. What I meant too was you're not coming out with the big guns and selling probably your highest margin products. You waited to the end, and you waited to make sure everybody saw everything else. And then anything that they maybe would be spending most of their money on, they got to see everything else first. So anything else that you can pick up and any other sales you can get, I respect the whole strategy. Like that sounds to me like a very well run business.
It was, and then it's a show. So you got to put together your lineup. What sells the best? So I'm not going to spend 10 minutes talking about a product that doesn't sell. I'm not going to carry it. I'm not going to lug it in and out somebody's house because it doesn't sell well. What can I put in a bundle and say, you need all 3 of these. So I already have these packages already made up, and I can get you in and out of the shopping experience. Because the other thing is, the longer you're at this person's house, the less money you're making. Because I'm not spending 30 minutes on one person and we got 20 people to go through, right?
Yeah.
So my average party by the time I was done was about $1,500, and I was in and out in 2 hours.
That's better than waiting tables.
It is, and I would do them on weekdays. So my best day eventually turned out to be a Monday. Why? Because people are like, what the heck is going on a Monday that you're having a party on a Monday? People would assume that it was on the weekends, but weekends people are distracted. They got birthday parties and graduations and other events you got to compete
They want to
with.
use their toys on the weekend. They buy their toys during the week. I'm sorry. I could keep going with the jokes.
But no, that's not even the case. Think about it. You're tired on the weekend.
Yeah, no, that's true.
You got laundry, you got to clean up, you got to go to the market.
Well, but you also, like, to run a successful business, you need to make sure it's a scalable process, and you're not going to get a lot of people to show up on the weekend because everybody's busy on the weekend. But on a weeknight, you can get more people in there to make that $2,000, $1,500 on a weeknight. So,
yeah, exactly.
let's get back to your journey and your accounting journey. Let's hear how the start. I guess you were leading into the start of First Step. That's your firm, right?
That is my firm.
That's your baby?
Yeah, it's my baby's trademarked, all that good stuff now. So it definitely belongs to me.
Yeah.
First Step Accounting. We make accounting a little less taxing for small business owners all across the U.S. Trademarked. You cannot use my line. If I catch you, I will get the lawyer sick of me.
You got the SEO searching for it, or the search engine. But that's your thing, right? And I'm sure you've been saying it before you trademarked it. I'm sure that's something that you would say.
Absolutely.
And so what does that mean to you, like at its core?
What it means to me is that I am helping small business owners relieve the stress by staying in compliance, because we hear a lot about I'm a small business owner, I want to DIY it, and then I have to explain to them why the DIY is hurting them versus helping them, and how hiring someone like me can simplify that process for them so that they can go out and do the thing that they magically do and make more money. So I break complex topics down into really simplified processes and formulas for my client base so that, again, they're feeling less stressed. All they know, they're like, Nayo's on the case. She's going to send me an email. I can respond and upload a document, and I'll be good to go.
I love that. I love it.
So do you have any employees?
I do have a couple. Most of my employees are part-time, however. My mama was working for me. I keep telling her she quit, though, because she abandoned her job back in April. She comes around every once in a while and does a little bit of work. And now my bestie from high school is on board part-time as well. And then I have a team of people who are managing my never-ending influx of emails. So they're managing my inbox for me. And then I'm looking to hire someone locally to help me manage my physical office.
I have about 1,500 emails that I'm trying to get to. I need somebody to do that, please.
How does this person help you with your emails?
So it's a company called Inbox Done. What they really did for me, because I had your 1,500 times 5, right? I had over 5,000 emails. They literally go through your inbox and create these processes for you to manage, label, file away, respond to those emails. So it kind of takes some of the administrative work off of your plate. They set up templates that they can respond to certain emails right away, and then they highlight information that's really key throughout my day. So like, for example, I have somebody reaching out to me who wants me to do a training program for them, and I can say, hey, put them on my schedule for Thursday, and they'll do it for me.
It's better than hiring an admin.
It is kind of like hiring an admin, except for they focus solely on the inbox. Okay. So it kind of works. But what I'm realizing is I probably need somebody a little closer to home, because I have a few projects that go on, and I need to be able to yell at somebody across the room like, hey, do this for me right now. Order this off of Amazon.
You're going to grow into that office that you revered against, or that you didn't want. So.
Right, exactly.
So you got a lot going on, and you wear a lot of hats, it sounds like. How did you keep all those hats on your head?
My digital calendar.
Okay.
Man, between my calendar and I have a paper planner I use called the Passion Planner. Those two things keep me on task and focused. And then I am using Nifty PM as my project management system. And so we're getting everything all loaded in there. But long as I have a list of things I'm supposed to be doing, it really helps me keep track. I love time blocking. So I'm a big fan of the Pomodoro technique. And I'll use that to work on one thing at a time. Like I really stopped trying to multitask because it doesn't work.
Thank you. I've been talking about that a while. I got my team doing time blocking, and Ackerman's making fun of me for it, but I say they have to block their time.
I'm not making fun of you for time blocking. So what do you think what makes your firm different from other firms?
The unique proposition is me. No, as much as I would like to say that, I know long-term growth, that's not sustainable. What makes us unique really is the fact that I specialize in working with businesses that are really in that, what I call the hustle phase, where they either have just gone into full-time entrepreneurship or they are working that job and on the way there. So we tend to specialize in making sure the compliance pieces are key, because that's where I find that client base needs the most help.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've learned how to automate that a whole lot too.
And these are the folks that have traditionally tried to keep it as a side hustle. They are doing a lot of the books themselves, and they're up late doing it, and they hit a wall, whether they can't get the stuff to the tax person in time or whatever it is, they need help.
Yeah, and I have a customer journey that takes them from learning how to do it themselves, figuring out, okay, I need some one-on-one training, going through the one-on-one training, and then doing it themselves, and like, I need to offload this. So I really have a service point for each one of them that hits those price points and hits where their trust level is in the process, because a lot of small business owners don't understand the value of accounting, and we have to show them what that value is. We can't just tell them, because they see a commercial and they're like, oh, I can do this myself. We have software, QuickBooks. I learned how to do this myself.
Okay.
Sorry, one of the tenants here is on the phone and somebody's banging on the doors.
What is that noise?
We got people doing some lawn work outside, but that's okay because we're talking about reach reporting right now.
We're not talking about lawn work then.
No. This is our reach reporting ad. You've never built a report like what Reach can offer because you've never had such an easy access to all your financial data before.
I feel like I already know how to use this product and I haven't started using it.
You want a product that you can use right away, because if it takes a lot of time to do it, accountants don't have that time.
Well, we also don't want to learn new things. A lot of times we just want something to work right out of the box because we spent our whole lives learning new things. We don't want to learn something new when it comes to reporting. We know what we want the report to look like, and now we just want it to be effortless. I think Reach does that.
You can build any metric that you want. It's like using Excel, but with live accounting data.
Live accounting data.
God,
that's pretty
accountants
cool.
love that.
They do. They love Excel, joining live data, Excel-like functionality, and gorgeous presentation. It's like Word, Excel, PowerPoint all working together. Reach is the Microsoft suite of reporting. Sweet. I think that's pretty cool. The clients will absolutely love the reports that I will send them.
But it takes some minutes to build and create. So basically, it's not going to take you that much time, and you're going to be able to give them fantastic reports.
So for our firm, at least, the success of our advisory services really relies on a strong relationship, and strong relationships start with communication. You can't just give them data without the visuals, right? They need the visuals. Clients get a deep understanding of their financial situation.
And reporting for clients is tough for a bunch of reasons. It is tough because every client's a little different. So you need a software that can help you standardize some processes and create beautiful reports, and that's what Reach does. Yeah.
Dashboards and reports that kind of tell a story, but turn your custom reports into templates you can automate. I love the customization to their reports too. You can customize your branding. They basically white label everything.
Like custom Jordans.
I do like custom Jordans.
And you like your custom reporting.
Custom Jordans and custom reporting. I can't fathom what they're going to do next.
So go to reachreporting.com and check them out.
Reach Reporting, complex data made simple.
It's really crazy. This is what happens.
That's entrepreneurship. So
it is entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So when you said you've figured out a way to automate this, what do you mean by that?
So templates are my friends. I have hella forms. I am a big fan of online forms that automates just about everything from data collection to getting paid to adding things to a to-do list.
What are you using for your forms?
Cognito forms.
Ooh, Cognito. Yeah, we're Typeform fans here, but I always like to look at what else is out there.
Cognito is my absolute favorite. They have all of these wonderful features. It integrates with Zapier. And I know Typeform is pretty, but when you scroll wrong on Typeform, it just looks a little kooky.
I'm
So,
with you. Yeah.
yeah.
So this has been you for this 10 plus years that you've been doing First Step. Where do you feel like you're at in your journey? Like, do you have a long way to go?
I'm still climbing, right?
Yeah.
I'm at the point now where hiring is required so that I can get some of this client work off my desk on somebody else's desk, and then continuing to educate and empower other accountants so that we can have more educated accountants in the industry that aren't afraid of stretching their wings, showing their faces on videos, and going after clients that may not have $5,000 to spend with them a month. Because I'm sure you guys are experiencing this as well. It's not too many qualified accountants you can hire in your practice. So one of my goals is really to help empower the next generation. It's
That
a
next generation.
thankless job, but I am up for the challenge.
Well, thank you for joining
So,
us.
how are you doing that?
So one of the ways I'm doing, so I just recently, and I'm so proud of myself because this was on my goal list, but I set up an endowment at my college, to be able to help finance the dream of a new accountant. But I constantly am going back to the college and encouraging the accounting students to not focus solely on the traditional accounting path, but look into avenues about getting QuickBooks certified before you graduate, looking at the enrolled agent designation before you graduate, so that you have some skills already in place to either go be a rock star at an accounting firm or be an entrepreneur and do what you want to do.
Yeah, letting them know their options and where they can go and different things that they can do. I think that's just part of the evolution of
Yeah. And between that and then the Taking Your Firm virtual summit that I host, teaching accountants who may not be as confident to take their firms virtually, attending.
Especially during this past year,
Yes.
Like, if you started doing that prior to COVID and then all of a sudden COVID hit.
I didn't actually. It had been on my to-do list, right? It was like something I was going to get
vision
to
board.
eventually.
Yeah, on your vision board.
And then COVID hit, and I was hearing all these horror stories about accountants who didn't have the basics like virus protection on their computers, and they're handling client data.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what the heck? We need to teach these people. And then, because I do come from a tax background, I'm also around a lot of traditional tax pros who physically want to go into the office and were putting themselves at risk by seeing clients in the office. I'm like, you don't know if these clients have COVID. Why would you continue to want to go into the office and put yourself at risk, especially when you're a little older? So I created this event within like 60 days to kind of help soften that blow for some of those traditional accountants and to kind of combat those horror stories I was hearing with the cybersecurity issues.
I mean, and so you've got a sneeze guard on your desk. For our listeners, I call it a sneeze guard, but you've got the wall. Do you still meet with clients in person?
I have a handful of clients that have the ability to come into the office, but it's really for a scanned appointment. So they'll bring their documents already out of the envelopes, we'll scan them in and then send them on their way. But this year I haven't had to meet with any clients like that because I trained them last year, my little handful, what I call my seasoned clients.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, we're not putting you at risk by coming into my office. It's just not that serious. It's tax prep. We will get you done. You don't owe a thing. You getting a refund. We don't even have to rush to file. So once they understood that, and then all of them have a handy cell phone. So I call it the mini computer in your hand. And I taught a few of them how to snap a picture of the tax documents and then uploading it right to the portal from their phones. A lot of them got on board. So
So then when do the conversations happen with the clients? Because a lot of what Ackerman does is when they meet, they're having a lot of these conversations, the annual tax people. How do you house the conversations? Are they happening online? Are they happening throughout the year?
So kind of depends on the clients. Tax prep only, just W-2. We don't really need to have a conversation. I'll shoot a video that sends along with the tax return if anything sticks out that I feel like they need to focus or work on. But my
That's dope.
bookkeeping, yeah, and that one that keeps me from having to find time on the calendar to meet with them. So again, back to this automation
And then
thing.
they find time to just watch the video and they get their value. Yeah. How about the discourse though? Like the back and forth?
If you train your clients up front, they do a good job. So I've realized with my client base, give them instructions at the beginning of the tax season that compiles 3 tasks. Anything more than 3, it just goes over their head.
Yeah.
So here's the 3 things you got to do. Once they do that and send their documents, then I come back with a second, here is what else I need. Don't email me back until I have all those things. And I'm really frank with my clients because they are grown ass adults. So I'm not babying them. I'm not holding their hands. If they send half the stuff, I'm not touching it until you send all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if they send 3 things and I got 6 things on that list and they say, hey, what's the status of my tax return? Did you include all 6 things I asked for? Go back to the list. That's just my process. And I know some other people, they like to do a little more hand holding. I'm going to go online and pull a transcript on your behalf. I'm not doing all that. We're talking tax prep. We're going to get you this thing.
We're talking
done.
taxes. We're
Yeah,
not talking about games or anything. We're talking taxes.
Now, if this is a corporate client, that's a whole different story. But I'm talking 1040s with a Schedule C and you're doing your own bookkeeping. I'm not doing your bookkeeping for you. I'm not going to go through your QuickBooks file. You don't want to pay for that. So this is the format I need it in. If it doesn't look like this, it gets rejected. You got to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. If you want me to do a review of your books, that's a separate fee. That's not included in the tax prep service. And then they have to schedule. They got to fill out a form, pay a fee. I do it. And then we get back to tax prep.
You put up the paywall. I like that. So that's not a sneeze guard. That's a paywall right there.
Yeah, I have boundaries. And I know no is a complete sentence. It's one of those things we need to be able to learn. Refer to your engagement letter. This is what you're paying for. This is what you're asking for. Those are 2 different things. So if you want the thing that you're asking for, it says here, additional services will be billed. So I'm letting you know what the cost is before I start the work. Is that what you really want?
Yeah. No, that's how we all should do it, and that's how our team should do it too. And sometimes we have trouble saying no to people. Right? They're our clients, but we really think they're our friends. So what can you do for and they think that we're their friends, and
we are their friends, but you have to be able to maintain the professional relationship. So I tell people all the time, when you walk into Walmart or Target or Apple, do you tell Walmart, Target, or Apple how you're going to pay them? They tell you, we accept cash, credit card. We do not accept whatever.
I'll pay you later.
Yeah. No, it doesn't work like that. So this is your business. You have to set and maintain the boundaries. And I'm really good at that. I think a part of my brain doesn't really have that piece that really cares about what people think about me. And I know a lot of people do. So if somebody says, I don't like that girl, I'm like, oh, great. I have a hater. I'm excited about that. And a lot of people are like, oh, but I'm going to lose a client. And I'm like, if you lose a client, guess what? There are 3 more waiting to be serviced. I promise you.
Yep.
You will lose the bad clients and get the great ones that fit in with your firm and how you run things.
Well, that's the right context, but also I think you do care what the right people think and what your clients think, like the ones that are already paying you. That is an important part, an important piece of it. You got to care. Yeah.
But one of the things that I do is I qualify every single client before they're even a client. So I talk to every single potential client. And I judge them based off of the process. So 1, you get instructions on how to schedule an appointment. There's a little button on my website that says book a call. I look at if you followed that instruction. 2, did you show up late to our 15-minute call? That says something about you. Or if you struggled with either dialing a phone number or clicking a link. Or I didn't see it in the email. All of those things are red flags to me. And then when I talk to you, I let the potential client do the talking. I can learn a bunch of different stuff about people when I let them talk. because you can hear what's important to them. You sometimes can hear what their budget is or how much they value what they're trying to get from you, because it depends on if I just have one question I'm trying to get answered, right?
And that one question they're trying to get answers is what's the cost a lot of times.
Right. And then that's when you, the provider, have to kick in and say, oh, let me reiterate back what I heard was important to you. Did I get this correct? Let me tell you a little bit about me and how I can help. Or you have to be able to determine right then and there, guess what? We are not a good fit. I'm going to send you a name of 3 other accountants who I think would fit in better. So you have to decide right then and there, like, this is either going to be a great fit or a terrible fit. And I usually I'm a pretty good judge of character. Like, I can tell. I don't deal very well with really needy people who want to talk to you all the time, or want to email every 5 minutes. I don't deal well with that. I like people who will say, here, I trust you, what's the timeline, and then let me do my job and then come back with questions.
Well, it also sounds like that's the right mindset if you want to work with professionals. And if you want to work with some amateurs that are just like amateur hour, their business is going to stay, hovering around 100,000 a year every year. They're going to spend all of their time just complaining and talking and I can't do this. So I feel like qualifying those personas, so to speak.
Yeah, you qualify them and then set the expectation too. So like in my call, I tell them what the timeline is going to be. So they know. So I ask, do you have a pressing deadline? Because some people have deadlines in their head and don't communicate with you about that. And they're like, they took forever to get my tax return. And it's like, you didn't tell me you needed it yesterday because you had a loan officer on your back.
Exactly. Yeah. Those expectations, right?
Yeah, that too.
So I noticed too that you have digital courses. And I think that's fascinating. Like you're teaching how to do bookkeeping or just the best. Was that what you referred to earlier when you said, I have this, steps to success?
Yes.
Talk a little bit more about that.
So the course, I have the course on there called the Business Bookkeeping Boot Camp, and it teaches my DIYers basically the essentials of understanding the pieces of their profit and loss statement and how it is reflected on the tax return. So it's not software specific. It is more so about this is what income is, this is what expenses are, here's a few tricky tax topic, and then this is what it's supposed to look like on the Schedule C. From there, once they kind of get in the habit of establishing this manual system using a PDF or Excel spreadsheet, then they realize, oh, this would probably be better or easier if I move on to bookkeeping services. Because I check in with them maybe halfway through the year, like, hey, how's the course going? Are you keeping up to date? And then make that recommendation like, hey, it could be a good opportunity for you to move to software. Then we do some QuickBooks training. So that's the next piece. Then once they do that for a few months, they're like, I really don't want to do this because I hate it. It brings me anxiety. Can you just take it over? So that's essentially my customer journey. And I learned that with the different experiences I was having with my clients. Like with tax prep, we'll get a client who has a Schedule C and they give you a copy of all of their PayPal transactions for the whole year. And it's like, what do you want me to do with this? Like, I don't know what the heck you were buying. You have to categorize these things into income and expenses. That's not my role. And so then I can lead them to, here's a course to teach you how to do that. From there, when you're ready to take the next step and actually automate it, because I get budget is a factor. You don't want to pay that subscription fee. When you're ready, here's a link for a discount to the preferred software we use. And I offer training services to teach you how to use it.
Preferred software, are you the QuickBooks queen?
I am QuickBooks, yes.
QuickBooks. We house a lot of Xero in this room here, but
I mean, I'm as well.
Yeah,
it's just a different mindset. When you look at QuickBooks and you look at Xero, they're just different. So they're not
green and one's blue.
The processes are different. You press the button here. I can pull this report here. So I didn't want to do all that brain switching. Again, I like automation, simplification. It's too much back and forth.
Well, that's why I brought it up. Yeah, and I brought it up because I think at a firm, you kind of want to choose which lane and which color you want to be. And it's not a one versus the other. It's the context switching, just like you were saying. And that's hard. The menus are different. And when you go in, it's just like, oh, God, I got to remember where this is and where that is. So I think, we started that journey with Xero, and then now they're both relatively the same. in a lot of ways. Ackerman, would you?
Yeah, I don't think there's that much of a difference. I think the API background in Zero is different than the QuickBooks background, but I think the usability from a end user is probably similar. Although I do think it's easier to screw up a QuickBooks file than a Zero file.
See. I think it's easy to screw up a Zero file, so that's funny. But I know Amanda Aguilar and who was it? Kathy Iconis. They did a side-by-side comparison of the features in QuickBooks versus Zero. And it was very enlightening because essentially you can do all of the same things in both softwares. Again, just a different click of the button.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's so funny because I have friends that are Zero champions. And like I said, I've gone through that certification to be a partner, and sitting in that class and hearing everybody complain about this is hard. I'm like, stop comparing it to QuickBooks.
Yeah.
It's not the same, and it's not hard. It's just different.
Yeah,
Yep.
Exactly.
I think that's the point. One's not better than the other. I don't really think at this point, but it's just they're different, and you got to recognize blue and green.
Well, I want to ask you about diversity in accounting.
Well, you mentioned.
I'm sure you get asked this a lot.
No. But you mentioned a Black accounting firm, and not a lot of people say I started at a white accounting firm, right?
Accounting tends to be very white and old and white.
Yes.
So, and every year they talk about the biggest problem in accounting is diversity. We're old and white, but nothing ever changes. So and you said a big thing about you is you want to help this next generation, and a lot of that is getting people who haven't been accountants to become accountants. So how do you think we do that?
So one of the ways, so I've been approaching it from a couple of different standpoints. So one of the ways is visually. We have these conferences, we look at advertisements, and when we see a conference event and it says the future of accountants, and we see 6 white men with gray hair, it's like, this doesn't look like the future.
Optics are not good on that one. No.
Yeah, we have to change that picture. So I don't know if you've realized, but they've started tailoring their campaign so that they're featuring more people of color. So
I saw you featured on one.
Yes. And that
yeah.
was because I had the gumption to speak up and say, hey, your conference lineup really sucks when it comes to who your speakers are. Like, I see 2 people of color out of 50 people. That's really shameful. You need to do a better job of recruiting speakers. And so they're like, oh, do you want to teach? Heck yeah. So the first year I was on a panel, and then the second year I got a breakout. I asked, hey, can we have a Black accountants meetup? They let me do that in 2019. It turned out to be way bigger than expected. But it was one of those things that was monumental, not only for them to see, because they were like, well, we'll see how many people show up. So when they saw how many people showed, they were like, oh, snap. We didn't realize that this is a population that's being underserved. So they started really paying attention to, and being more mindful about the advertisements and the campaigns that they put out and the commercials, making sure that they not only highlight those older white men because they are important too. That's the history of accounting. Plus, we don't want to show ageism because that's another one of those isms that pops out. But also showing younger folks, Latinx, Black, queer, all of that matters, especially if we're trying to improve and grow and serve a community of people who identify one way or the other, because people want to work with people that they can relate to. I had a call today from a potential client who they identified as queer and was looking for an accountant who was queer. I'm not queer, so I referred them to 2 other accountants that I know who are, because there's just a language that I don't want to overstep, because I'm like, my pronouns are she and her. I don't want to screw up with some stuff I'm not really comfortable with. So it just makes it easier to be able to do that. So that's one way, is just being the voice. So you see something, you say something. I don't like what I see, let's correct it. How can I correct it? Here are 5 people I think you should highlight instead of these 2.
So you start as the voice, but then you become the hero.
Yes. And then from the back end is encouraging more people of color to get into accounting and showing them that there are people who look like them in this profession. They just may not show up in their textbooks or in the commercials. So I show them examples of, or introduce them to real life accountants who may have a background similar to theirs that are and that gets them a little excited and jazzed.
So it starts with the youth, the next generation, and reaching out and making sure you're showing up too. So it's like optics, the visual, and also the messaging and inclusiveness. Yeah.
Right. And then the reason I'm working on the next generation is because unfortunately some of this older generation is just so stuck in their ways, they don't want to change. And unfortunately it's going to have to melt away, to put it kind.
They might have to die.
Yes. They have to melt away.
They wash up, melt away and then wash up. But
yeah, and it's the same thing with some of these organizations, like some of
they're going to make their money though, and that's the thing that usually doesn't stop somebody. So with the money, and that creates a lot of inertia. So I honestly can't really speak to the elders, and the younger generation seems very open to any kind of change. I never really spoke to somebody that's younger that shies away from the topic, because they don't. And elders tend to shy away from those harder topics, because then they figure, how is it going to impact me? How's it going to affect me?
It's the elephant in the room. See, that's why I always have my elephant in the room. See him back there?
Oh, that's what you were pointing at.
I thought you were a Republican.
Yeah.
That's my elephant in the room. The elephant's always right there, over my shoulder, reminded me.
We don't get into politics, but I see a lot of blue in this room anyway. just.
So what would how we're both white? How can we help with diversity?
We're two Jewish white dudes.
Yeah. We're literally as white as they come.
You're pale. You haven't been to the beach and got your tan on.
Exactly.
So one of the things I encourage people to do is take an internal bias test, right? Because one of the things we as people don't realize is who we show bias to, because those biases can come out in who we choose as clients, who we hire for our teams, who we tend to alienate as colleagues or tend to dismiss online and using hashtags like text, Twitter, and Facebook groups. So once you understand who you are and what makes you tick, then you can really start changing how you show up in the world. So if you're looking at your team and you're realizing everybody on my team looks like me, dresses like me, thinks like me, acts like me, you have a disconnect here in your hiring practices, because your team should be diverse.
Here we go down that road. Remember earlier you did say that a lot of your clients are like you, and that's your brand, that's the messaging that you're bringing across, right? I think for me, a lot of my team's like me, but my clients are like me. Now I got a lot of gay guys on the team, I got a lot of females, but I don't have any African Americans. I don't have any, and that hadn't been a choice. And I have had a few on my team. They're just not with me anymore. So I think it's partly like self-reflection too. What could have gone wrong or what could have gone right in the past. But
and that could have, you mentioned you had a couple on the team. Did you actually interview them when they left to ask them why they were leaving? Because a lot of people don't realize that, when you have Black employees and they leave, a lot of it could.
So they did. So I had to let one of them go, and it was just and honestly, and she worked at the IRS, she worked for the State Department, and she carried herself at the firm as if she was still at the IRS. And she was mean to clients, she was rude to clients, and we would get a lot of, and it wasn't anything at her fault, because she was really nice and everything was great. And she worked with me for 3.5 years, and everything went well. But then at a certain extent, it was just drawing the line with it was actually a lot of our Black clients, and she upset them more than anything else. And they're the ones who were like, I really like her, but so I don't, and this is to the point, maybe she was the wrong person to hire, right? Or maybe that was it. And I think that's to
or
that
she
point.
Still had on her IRS hat, and then on that end, she may have dealt with a lot of Black clients who, were difficult, and so she may have
put an archetype on top of the client side,
Yep.
and she didn't see them for the people they were, and then she was just a authoritative type, and that's what it turned into. And as much as we tried, and maybe I could have trained more and done better, and I feel like, sorry, I'm looking back on it like I'm regretting a lot of things, but then it's hopeful for the next round. There's always so much more you can do at a certain point. I feel
And
like
you can't save everybody, right?
okay, no, because now it's just writing fake books and doing real estate. But I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk too much about that. But everything's all good. And Ackerman, you got anything else on this?
No, I think the internal bias is very interesting. Is there a specific tool you recommend, like on a website that does that?
It is. If you Google it, it's like the main one comes up, and there are multiple tests. So it's not just one test. You can test to see.
If you have a link, I'll put it in the show.
So I think that's good to do, not just for diversity, but also just the personalities on your team, because you've got a diverse. It's not just a diverse in color, but it's also
diverse in thought, right?
And personalities and.
And I mentioned the isms before because, visually we see color and we see sex, but we tend to forget about the other pieces of it. Age.
CPA or not CPA, like we talked about earlier. Like, I'm only going to hire CPAs. Like, what if I say I'm only going to hire Black CPAs? That's not good either, right?
That could be different. So if the goal there is to have a Black CPA firm, then I would actually encourage that, because there's only 5% Black. I mean, out of all of the CPAs in the world, only 5% of the CPAs are Black, and that's a problem, especially if we're looking at a profession who supposedly is growing. But we're looking at your members, and they're not reflective of today's society. Yeah. So. We have to realize what are the barriers? Like, why are there this few Black accountants in?
So what do you think the barriers are?
So a lot of it is, one, is costly to take the CPA exam. Just even having to get your extra 20 credits in order to sit. Somebody who may be in college with a mountain of student loan debt, they may not even be able to afford to get those extra credits.
There's a barrier enough for them to get into college, and then now they have to struggle to pay off those debts, and then to think about adding more debt before they can even get a job. Like, that's
So that's one. Then you need study materials, right?
I think organizations should also, like, to tackle the debt thing. Organizations should be paying for scholarships and things like that too. And to promote.
What you're saying is it's expensive.
It's expensive. And so I use my journey as an example. The fortunate thing about me is that, like I mentioned, we didn't have any money. We were piss poor. So I got through a master's program with only $7,000 in student loan debt. And that was because I was super smart. I graduated third in my class, and I applied for every scholarship out there that I could, even through grad school. So I wound up getting the money to pay for college and not having to worry about that. But I did have to work because I was a teen mom. So my son, I was responsible for him. So I didn't have the time to just sit and study. Like some people, I can take the summer and study and pass all 4 tests. I didn't have to do that. I had to jump right into the workforce. Like the day after I graduated, I had a job lined up. I started that Monday because, you got bills, you got responsibility. And so a lot of my peers had that same experience. They're taking care of families, whether it's children, parents, siblings. They could be, the difference between being able to pay for dinner and having lights shut off, right? That little extra income always helps. And then once we do go through all the struggle of taking the test, if you read some of the questions on this test, you're like, who the heck wrote these questions? They're not formatted in a manner that we think are biased, but they are. Like, if you look at the language that we use or teach people, like in college prep versus somebody who didn't college prep, some people are better prepared for questions that ask you things in the double negative. Some people haven't had that skill to learn that. Like, I went to public school. They didn't teach us things on how to answer questions in the double negatives. We weren't taught that at all. That is definitely one of those things you have to practice. And unless you get some college prep skills, it's pretty much very difficult for you to do. And then a lot of people don't pass on the first test, on the first try. Like, it's discouraging. Who wants to pass a test, get to the end, and then lose 2 credits and have to do it all over? They say, screw this.
Well, that
don't
did
need
happen
this.
to you. We got the lead in. That was your CPA journey, and now it's, it's almost like you're too good for it at this point, right? You
Well,
don't need to put
I
up
want
with
to
all
say
that.
because I actually bought the study materials that I used. I bought them back in 2001. And one of the reasons I chose them is because they had this lifetime access until you pass the exam. So it was awesome. But at the same time, I looked at, where are you working? What's the goal here? Do you really need the CPA? And as I continue to look at this journey, I was like, I don't need this CPA exam. I'm not sacrificing all these hours to sit for some test that's not going to give me a bump in salary. Like, it just didn't make sense for me at the time. And so I decided to put it on hold. When I picked that journey up again about 2 years ago, it was really because it was on my bucket list of items I needed to do before I died. And so I was like, let me do this right now since I got some free time and I can do it. And then COVID hit, and then I moved on to a different project, which I feel like
Bright-eyed and bushy tail, and then you hit the wall. Okay.
It wasn't even the wall. It just, at that point, it just became, it was no longer about me. So I picked up the baton for the summit, and then trying to get my clients through the pandemic. Because remember, my client base is all of those smaller part-time hustlers who have either just gone full-time in business or are working that job in their business, and they got impacted really heavily. And then all of the new clients that came on board last year because they were trying to apply for PPP and all that kind of good stuff and didn't have their books up to par. So it was either focus on the CPA exam or help all of these people. And
focus on your, I mean, this is everything part of your flywheel of your business and your life almost. It's like, it sounds like it all kind of is congruent and it's all working together. And you got to figure out which bucket are you going to dedicate your time to at this period. Right. So.
Yes. So.
Well, thank you for dedicating time to our bucket of the
our little bucket.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. What's the biggest piece of advice you can give other accountants?
Biggest piece of advice I can give to other clients is to talk to other accountants. Like, don't be afraid to make a new friend. I've learned so much from people who are in this profession who don't look like me, who don't use the same software as me, who are from different parts of the country, just by, a hashtag on social media or in a Facebook group. Don't be afraid to look at the things that they're posting and say, oh, that's quite interesting, and striking a relationship or conversation with them. Like, hey, say, can I send you a Starbucks card and we have virtual coffee 15-20 minutes? I would like to get to know you a little bit better. Honestly, that has been the absolute biggest and best thing that has pushed my business forward, is all of the relationships I have developed over the past 10 years. That it just really has propelled me in ways I could not even have imagined.
So you do it for the culture and you do it for the community.
Yes, absolutely. And it helps that I'm an extrovert, but I've spoken to so many introverts.
It helps that you're smart too. Like, it sounds like you got a social degree to you as well. So
part of that is being in sales. Like, I can pick out a superstar in a room that people just would ignore. And they could be an introvert who is not doing anything but just sitting there taking notes. And something will say, you need to talk to this person. And I listen to that something and go over and say, introduce myself. Like, hey, who are you? Where are you from? Why do I need to know you? Because you look like a superstar to me. And that really makes people's days, especially when you're at conferences.
I'll be honest, 100% of the time, that person is a superstar. 100% of the time, because in some way they are. Like, I don't know.
I agree. And you Beautiful. Just never know until you strike up that conversation with them. But so many people, I watch so many people just walk past people and not talk to anybody, and they're on the phones, and they're just like.
Who's that important? If you're at a conference, who's that important to be talking on the phone on? Unless you're about to go speak and somebody's telling you to get on stage. Like, right. Otherwise, get off your phone. Yeah. So.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for joining the Sons.
Yes.
The sons and daughters of CPAs.
It's I'm gonna say the name wrong. Nayo.
There you go. You got it.
Nailed it. Thank you so much.
So the way this one's going to work is they gave us a script. We're going to read a script, and then we're going to talk about our experiences. Let's go. More than 5,000 accounting and bookkeeping firms across the world of all sizes use Practice Ignition to send powerful online proposals to get paid automatically and manage ongoing client engagements in one place.
With access to hundreds of ready-made templates with built-in digital signatures and engagement letters, you'll feel confident knowing you're delivering a clear scope of work.
Plus, by offering your clients easy upfront payment options, you'll be able to free up your cash flow that gets reconciled into your QuickBooks or Xero automatically.
So what'd you use before Practice Ignition?
Oh, so we had a PDF that we would put together, and
You were so proud of that PDF too.
I was so proud of the PDF. The PDF actually was just a display of your 3 options, but it would take forever to put together. And it wasn't just that. We had 2 different payment systems. We had to keep up with AR and Xero. We weren't really using Xero to send all the proposals. Some proposals were in Xero. It was all over the place. What about you?
What a mess. We did everything on Word documents and sent it through EchoSign. And then we had to set up a bill. We were actually using FreshBooks to bill.
So I think for us, we've been on Practice Ignition for about 2 years. And I've referred to it in the past as the heart of our tech stack, more or less, because before somebody's a client, they're in something else. They're in HubSpot. And then after they're a client, it pushes from Practice Ignition to 2 different spokes. It goes to Xero, it goes to Carbon. Because Xero and Carbon don't talk to each other, this is perfect because it keeps things unified.
Yeah, and it just saves you a ton of time and keeps everything standard. And if you need to do a new proposal for a new client, you just think of a client that is similar to, copy it, put in their stuff. It takes 2 minutes, send it out to them. Then you're getting an ACH credit card in 2 minutes. You're getting paid.
There's a ton of customization too. When you want to put together a proposal, you can do those 3 options like I was doing on my PDF. You can do that. You can create templates. You can have variable pricing. You can have fixed pricing. You can have hourly rates. Anything, the way that you price, you can do that in Practice Ignition.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you from our perspective, we used to have $400,000 of AR all the time. Now we have $20,000 of AR. It's just
So
cut
do we.
down on our AR. So clients are pains in the asses. But now Practice Ignition solves for most of that. So for a limited time only, Practice Ignition is offering 25% off your first year. If you're ready for a single source of truth for your clients, head on over to Practice Ignition and use the code to get started for free. I don't know what our code is.
We don't have a code.
We'll just assume it's Sons of CPAs.
Yeah. If the code is Sons of CPAs, type that in there. If not, just mention us, I guess.
Yeah.